started to feel like something's not right.
I mean, seriously. She laughed at me and said I was hallucinating. But I know what I saw, and I know I wasn't dreaming. About a decade ago, I worked in the Central Receiving Division cell block, where we house all of our day's arrestees. As a relatively new officer, I would laugh at the senior officers who would tell us stories about the cell block being haunted. I mean, seriously, how could the building be haunted? It was relatively new at the time.
Once when I was working in cell block, a really strange thing happened to me. I was doing checks when I heard a male voice calling from across the hallway. I told the male,
"Just a minute,"
while I finished my checks, but I continued to hear the same male voice calling, "Officer, officer." I decided to go and see what this person wanted, just in case it was an emergency. As I walked down the hallway, the voice got louder and louder. I yelled back.
"I'm almost there."
When I got to the other row of cells, the voice suddenly stopped. As I looked down the hallway, I noticed that all the cell doors were open, meaning that they're all supposed to be unoccupied. I yelled back again.
"Hello?"
But it was dead silent. I was a little hesitant at first, but I made my way down the hall to check each cell. As I looked at all the empty cells, I started to feel like something's not right. I began hoping to see someone, anyone, just sitting there. But when I reached the last cell, I saw that it too was empty. Right then, I felt a cold chill. The hair on my arm stood up, and I ran the heck out of there.
Whenever I worked in cell block on the graveyard shift, I was usually tasked with the head count of all the arrestees. This was to ensure no one was hurt, missing, or had escaped. So as I made my way past all of the cells, I noticed a cell door that was open. But this wasn't out of the ordinary. We would leave the doors open when no one was in the cell. But as I walked past this cell, I was shocked to find a guy sleeping in it. I immediately closed the door and made sure it locked. At first, I thought it was odd, but I remembered hearing stories about some of the cell doors' locking mechanisms jamming. So I made sure the door locked and then went to report it to the turnkey officer. When I told her what I had saw, she laughed at me and said I was hallucinating. She said she just did a head count a few minutes earlier and everything checked out. I wasn't joking, so we both decided to go back, checked the door, and identified who the person was. When we got there, the door was still secured, just as I had left it. But when we opened it, no one was there. The cell was empty. Whoever was in the cell had vanished. I thought the guys were playing a joke on me, but even they seemed upset because they thought I was playing around. But I know what I saw, and I know I wasn't dreaming. Most of the officers who worked in the cell block will tell you they don't believe in ghosts. But most of them will admit to you that they had an uneasy feeling while walking the halls, especially